Hi Sharon, thanks for popping in today just to share some of our experiences as carers. Now, can I start by asking what hit you when you first discovered that your patient had been diagnosed with cancer?
It's a while back now, so let me cast my mind back. To be honest, when we went to the hospital, you sit in like a particular area, and I realised that they were getting the room ready to tell us in. I don't know what made me know, but it was just kind of like I was watching these people go in and I thought, God, there's a lot of people gone in there. This is not going to be good. But I didn't mention it to Chris because I'm not going to panic him yet. So when we went in, they were all sat round, 5, 6, might have only been 4. I can't really remember a number. But I remember thinking, right, this isn't good. But I didn't panic. I didn't worry about it. I sat and looked at the screen that they were showing us where the cancer was, explaining it to us. And I just took it all in, to be quite honest. Chris didn't. He didn't freak out, but he just kind of glazed over. And I don't think he took any of it in, if I'm honest. But I was quite calm coming out of that. And I just thought, right, where should we go now? Get him in the car. What does he want to do? Wanted to go and see his brother. So I drove him there. And then we drove to my mum's. And that was the first time I got upset telling my mum.
Right.
I was fine explaining to his brother and his sister-in-law that wasn't a problem, but telling my mum, because it's like, it's my mum. I got a little bit upset. Not emotionally, what I'd call emotionally upset, but I was a little bit like filled up a little bit. And then that was about it, really.
Had you had any carer experience before that?
To me, a carer is somebody that's there 24/7, and I wasn't. I had to continue with work, and so I never really classed myself as a carer.
But you are there 24/7, even when you're at work.
Yeah.
Even when you're at work, you're still there 24/7. As opposed to when you're just visiting at the hospital and you get the half an hour meeting or whatever.
Yeah.
We I think as carers in those circumstances get a much broader view of the reality of what's going on with our patient than ever the doctors and nurses will pick up in a 10-minute interview. Interestingly enough, Sharon, I had not quite the same experience. Jane was diagnosed by a dental practitioner, and this was now maxillofacial, so all the detail we had to wait for another 10 days or more until we had the appointment down at Preston, which is the first time we really found out what was going on. So we're in treatment period. We've had the diagnosis. The difference between men and women, sometimes the shock of running the household being added to the burden of looking after
for a fella,
can be a little bit more difficult than it can sometimes, not always, for the ladies. So did you slot into looking after Chrissy's needs and requirements, continue your job, managing the house without too many issues and problems?
I didn't really have problems slotting into doing it. My problems came when Chris wasn't very cooperative in helping me do it. He was a bit of a pain in that way.
Okay, so on
That's
my side,
for me.
great stuff. On my side, I had an angel for a patient.
Right.
She was always communicative.
Yeah.
Always willing to talk about the issues and where we go and what we did. It was a together event. I'm suspecting that wasn't quite the same.
No,
for you.
not at all. Bless him. No, he was. Obviously, I then have to run the household, go to work, do the washing, the cooking, the cleaning, without any help at all. And Chris has always been a good help around the house and dropping the kids or picking them up and stuff like that. But from near enough day one, he went into complete meltdown, really. So he's diagnosed on the Friday, and by the Saturday morning he's decided he can't eat. And it's like, what do you mean you can't eat? Of course you can eat. You were only diagnosed yesterday, but no, meltdown, can't possibly eat. Because obviously they'd told him things that are going to happen. And that was it with him. He was like, that's it, it's happened now.
Black and white.
Yeah. So they said, I won't be able to eat. I've got to have a peg fitted, so I can't eat. Okay, love, what would you like? So it lasts a while. And then obviously he had his peg fitted. Treatment-wise, no problems. He went through those sort of things fine. But it was when he got home. So peg feed, can't do it himself. So he can't sit there and put the pump on or put the feed through his peg. No, I have to do that. So that became really difficult, and that was probably the hardest bit we had. So not only have I got 2 kids I'm running around and I'm going to work full time, but I've got to feed him before I go to work, and then when I come in, He's not moved from that same seat. So there's no wash being put on or put out. And, you know, it's head and neck cancer. It's not your hands or your legs. You can still get up and you need to walk around. And that was our biggest problem to get over.
Okay, I'm fortunate then. It was quite the opposite for me. My biggest problem was I didn't know how to work the washing machine.
Right.
I knew how to do everything else, but there are too many buttons, numbers and dials on the washing machine.
Yeah.
So I made sure Jane gave me a lesson
Yeah.
very early on. I know I'm going to have to start, because she's going to spend a bit of time in bed asleep and not feeling well with medication.
And you accept that. That's part of
Absolutely.
the treatment.
But I wasn't working.
Right.
I was retired.
Right.
And again, I think that takes an element of pressure off. And we don't have children.
Yeah.
So I think we lost out two ways there. We didn't have the support of the children, but we also didn't have to worry about how we fit them into our environment. Did you and Chris ever get the opportunity to sit down and talk about the possibility, good as bad, about where this cancer was going, might lead to, what we would do, how we're going to deal with it?
No, not with Chris.
No.
He, Mr. Doom and Gloom, no, not at all. To me, there was never ever going to be a problem. We were going to have the treatment, have the operation, chemo, radiotherapy, all done, all dusted, back to work. But there was no discussing that with Chris. But he went into a depression with it, a real depression with it. Real problem with eating. He wouldn't eat, he wouldn't try it. We were probably peg-fed for 3 years, you know, and that was hard work. So the last thing we were going to talk about at any stage in it is what if? What if it's good? What if it's bad? What if it's...
Day by day. Always day.
We just literally took the day, we just literally took it day by day.
And how did you find this impacting on your mental health?
Well, at the time, I don't think I did to begin with. I just carried on, got on with it, and it's as time went on, it was probably the latter end of him still not eating or him still not wanting to feed himself that I was like, you're taking the mickey. I'm trying to be polite. You're taking the mickey. You know, I'll be honest with you, many a time I stopped on the promenade on my way home from work and had a bit of a meltdown, cried to myself. Because it's not something you can take into them, is it? You're not doing this, you're not doing that. Well, I'm the one with cancer. I'm the one that's had the operation. You know, it's like, you don't want to be having a go at them, but you need to have a go. But it's the wrong person to have a go. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
And you want to come in positive rather than nag. So where do you go? What do you do? So
and did you have anybody to turn to look for
friends? No, but the problem is when you've got, you know, I would text my friends and say I need a G&T night, and we would go out for a meal. And I mean that was fine. Chris was, you know, capable of looking after himself while I went out for a meal. Well, I would feed him through his peg before I go, and then he would be sat in the same seat. But after probably the first 10 minutes of moan, they don't want to know, and they can't relate to it.
No.
They try and they go, oh, you know, oh, it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame. And I don't mean that horribly, but you kind of look at them and think, you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about with the peg feed, you know, coming back out of the tube and all over you. And, you know, that you wake up at 2 a.m. and it's like sleeping with a child because suddenly the bed is soaking wet because this pump has come away from the peg feed and it's now all in the bed. And, you know, you have a little bit of a laugh with them, but seriously, I've now got to get up at 2 and change the bed and do the washing again before I go to work. So, you know, 10 minutes and you're thinking, I need to get off the subject of woe is me.
And am I right in thinking that as you were going through this, Swallows as we know it today didn't exist in that format?
No.
So there was no...
Swallows was... we were asked to go to a Swallows meeting, which I wasn't keen on going to, but we went. It was sitting round a big table, and you literally went round the table, my name is, and I'm here because, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't need to listen to all of these other stories. I've got enough with this one here. So, and it didn't do anything for Chris either. He came out and we were both like, oh no, that's not what we were after. Don't know what we were after at the time, I'm not sure, but we just felt that wasn't it. So there was nothing, there was no other support group for us to turn to. There was nobody in that support group I felt I could gel with because it just didn't sit right with what I wanted at the time. So, no.
If we take the Swallows of today out of the equation, what are we actually left with as a support network? Even today,
nothing.
I don't think we are. I don't think there's anything
We're not.
there.
No, we're not. How can we be? How can we change it? The NHS can't cope with it. The NHS, and again, the NHS, even if they had lots of nurses they could throw at it, if they've not been through it, it's hard to talk to somebody about it. It's like going back out with my friends on a G&T night. They don't understand it. So it's got to be somebody that's been there, that can understand what head and neck means, because, you know, it's facial. It's in you. Everybody can see it. It affects your eating. It affects your family time, because you don't sit and eat meals with each other anymore. It affects their confidence if they have to go out.
Is this after effective treatment is over and done with?
Yeah, I think whilst at the latter end of Chris still being at home and through his treatment, hasn't got the all clear, but it was a case of me, I'd started going, you've got to get some work. You can't sit here for another year with no work. You know, the bills were mounting up, and
real life problems.
Real life problems. And when you are
in
your own home, you're not renting, you're working, there's no financial help. So that was another issue that I was dealing with, because again, Chris wasn't. He went into what I called his bubble. So he sat in his little bubble. Woe is me. You know, I'm the one that's had cancer, and I'm the one that's going through this, and I'm the one that can't eat. But on the outside, it was like, yeah, but we still have kids, we still have a house, we still have a mortgage. You're not working. We need to get a grip on this. We did eventually have some very frank conversations with each other. And I started to say, you've got to do something, Chris. You've got to do something. And whilst he sat for many hours on the sofa, not moving, going anywhere, he started thinking in his head, what can he do? And the Swallows idea started to form, as in, is that a support that we need? Where it is more, let's talk to people that have been there and seen it and done it. Not sit around a table to stand up and tell you a story, because it's not everybody's comfortable with that.
No.
So Chris started the process off, really, much to my horror, because to me, it was cured. All right, we hadn't had the all clear, but it had gone. He'd had the operations, chemo, radiotherapy. Get your backside out to work. Not keep dwelling on cancer, because in my mind, he couldn't get out of this depression with it. So why continue to work with it? But he used his skills, his marketing skills, his, you know, gift of the gab when he wanted to talk, and started it, and started changing what was already there as a small support group into the charity. And fantastic, but it took me probably a couple of years into it before I would have anything to do with it.
Really?
I could not grasp it. Couldn't get my head around it at all. I didn't go to the meetings. We wouldn't get involved in it. And it wasn't until the very first conference in Liverpool. And I went along. I didn't get involved in getting it ready. None of that. But I went along because I thought, I'll go shopping. He can do the conference, I'm going shopping.
Yeah.
So I went to the Liverpool one, sat in the opening, and then watched a couple of speakers. And I actually sat in the audience. I had absolutely nothing to do with setting it up, running it. Oh my God, I broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. And at the lunchtime, I was going to go into like the exhibition area and help out, and I went and sat on like the front of the docks at Liverpool, and people passing must have thought I was an absolute nutter, because I was just sobbing. And I don't really know why.
Was this a release, do you think?
Possibly. It I think, and also it all fell into place, what he was doing and why he was doing it, because these speakers he'd had on were patients and carers, and it was just like, it was like an inspiration, you know, inspirational to me. And it was a bit like, I understand what's going on now, and how these people need to talk to people that have been there and seen it and done it. And I came back an absolute wreck. And I didn't tell Chris where I'd been. I just carried on doing whatever, sat in the afternoon one. And I'm not even sure if I told him that night, to be honest. But it just fell into place what he was doing. And after that, I became more involved, because I could understand it. But to me, prior to that, it was like, why do you want to sit and talk about cancer? It's gone. Let's just get out there now and go to work. I still found it difficult. It wasn't working. But I knew I needed to do swallows. I knew.
Sadly, Jane didn't survive her cancer. And whilst the fight, yours lasted 3 years, did you say?
Well, 3 years not eating, 5 years.
5 years.
Woe is me.
Mine was all over and done with. I say mine. Jane's cancer was all over and done with in 7 months. From diagnosis to unfortunately passing away. So totally different experiences. She was incredibly, as an ex-nurse, good at feeding herself through the tube.
Right, yeah.
In fact, I wanted to have a go because it looked like a good thing to do.
Right.
And she wouldn't let me. and apparently I got into trouble once because when she did let me have a go at it, I pushed it all in too fast.
Yes, yeah. Oh, that's when it all fired back on me. So, yeah.
But she was marvellous at taking care of all that sort of thing. So she left me to deal with what was my issue, where yours was obviously how to get the attitude of your patient in line, which would help you do what you've got to do. I had a system to fight called the hospital, who failed us completely. And you're aware, I know, that we had to resort to immense pressure to even get the operation that we needed. Sadly, it didn't work out. But the point I'm driving at here, Sharon, is that your experience and my experience are probably at two completely opposite ends of the scale. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people who will sit somewhere along and in between. How do we reach out to them? What is it? If we had a magic wand, and I know I've thrown this one at you completely off the cuff, but if we had a magic wand that we could wave, that we could reach out to and bring some of these carers who we know are struggling, who we know will never admit to the fact that they're struggling until often it's right at the limit of what they can endure. How do we persuade them that talking is good in this case when all through their lives they may have been told, just get on with it. Keep quiet, just get on with it. Stop whinging. You're not the one with cancer.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I think, all we can do is keep pushing it, keep pushing the swallows, keep pushing the carer side of it, and we have made that bigger over the years because it was originally the patients.
Yes. But
then we started to realise that actually the carers do need somebody. The carers meetings, we've got to keep pushing them. And I think, I will tell you, even now I struggle with that word carer because not everybody sees themselves as a carer. So, if somebody had said to me, well, actually we've got a carers meeting, I'd have gone, well, I'm not a carer. I'm just, I'm Chris's wife, I just deal with it. So it's getting them to realise that if they don't want to be called a carer, that's fine. But yes, they are caring. But there are people out there they can talk to and they can sound off to. And we have to make sure that it is confidential. Because if they want to sound... I'm saying nothing today that I've not already told Chris.
No.
Probably not as polite.
Yes.
But, people want to know that they can come and sound off in a quiet area that's not going to get back to the patient, because it would be heartbreaking if that happened. It would have been at the time for me. If Chris really thought I was struggling with the fact he couldn't, get out of that chair during the day, it's just another added pressure to them, and they don't need it.
Correct.
But carers and those of us that don't class ourselves as a carer, we need to release that pressure ourselves and that stress. So I think we just keep pushing it. Things like this, things like getting it out on film, getting it out on YouTube and things like that. The carers meetings, literature. We've got to do a carers book. So that when the patient gets their book, a carer gets their book, and they can read different carer stories that go, my God, we've got this one to this one. That's how big the spectrum is about it.
I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming along. I hope we've given a broad insight now to how wide the problem is in terms of the different experiences that carers within head and neck cancer, but all cancers to be fair, experience. And remember, the Swallows is there for everybody. If you need to talk, we're available. Thanks, Sharon.
No worries.